Stop being an idiot, go snowboarding. Oprah Winfrey recognized that we made good chorizo. That was the era of J.P. Walker and Jeremy Jones and Brandon Ruff, just the craziest shredders ever. Craig Kelly, of course, give anything. The Olympics called us to say we have to change absolutely everything. Let's go get some more brandy and coffee. And I made myself a cartoon-style cold cut sandwich. And I just kept talking about salami, and I'm sitting at home on a Peloton, and I'm like, am I doing this right? And the final winner for the snowboarder is Elias Cairo.
1, 2, 3, 4.
He's no one, she's no one, we're no one.
Welcome to the Nemo podcast called CoPro. So we got an immigrant family landing in Salt Lake City, and then we've kind of transitioned to a snowboarder.
Yeah.
Making a direction and going to the Swiss Alps to learn a craft. And then bringing all that skill set back to the States and starting an entrepreneurial business, and we'll get on all that.
Podcast is done. You hit all
We're
the
done.
points.
Like we've heard it all before. But it's always fun to start at the beginning and do things that are a little bit unsettling. But I think what I've always appreciated is how you've talked about your dad. So there's this guy, is that him?
Yeah, it's him. That's awesome.
That's right.
Yeah.
Giannis. Nickname.
Yeah. Giannis, yeah.
And it's like, again, I think about the energy and effort it takes for, an immigrant from a small, farming community in Greece to have the kahunas to come all the way over here.
Yeah.
And why Salt Lake? And then it seems like he figured it out.
Yeah, totally. It's wild. Yeah, I think it really dawned on me this year. Last year with Michelle and the family, we went to his village and we went into the house he was at. And he's like, yeah, he had 14 siblings in this tiny little room with no electricity, no gas, and no running water. And they all had that. They had it now. They had gas now and electricity now. But as they were growing up, they had to hand bail their water, and all those kids in a little tiny room. And it dawned on me. I thought about how hard it was and everything to be like, man, why would you leave Greece? And then you see this. And I'm like, how did you even get out of this village? Everything was by donkey to get down to the sea. And then he became a merchant marine. And then he hopped on a boat to go find his sister in this fancy city called Chicago. And the amount of just guts it would take to do that. It's crazy. Like right now, I couldn't even get myself to move to San Diego. It seems too daunting. Right. But let alone just to be like, I'm out of this village. I don't speak English. I'm going to go figure this out.
It's funny. I was hearing my daughter complain about her room, and then it's like, it's heated. Check. I did a trip to Romania, and it's always good, I think, for us to get out of our comfort zone and go see really what, I don't want to say third world, but just how the rest of the world has to live.
Sure.
And it's humbling, and it makes you appreciate what you do have here. Because having winter in a poor country, did it snow in the village?
Oh, yeah. Super steep.
Getting through the winter is brutal.
And tons of wars and just starvation and the crazy stories that they told us as a kid sitting there and watching my 80, well, I guess he's almost 90 now, uncle, just strong, like big shoulders, still working in his garden every single day, enjoying food, eating huge meals, drinking midday, also puts you into perspective of, yeah, it's rough up here, but their joy is totally different than mine as well. They enjoy such simple things. He knows he should work in his olive fields and his walnut garden just to stay healthy. And I'm sitting at home on a Peloton, and I'm like, am I doing this right?
Dude, right? It gets so funny to kind of see how we think. And is it actually making us any happier?
Truly.
I think that's what I'm tuning in here is like, they're simple, but they're happy.
So happy. And the love of the family and how much they care and genuine laughter and of course worry and concerns. It's just an interesting balance. But you did see how my father brought a lot of that with our family. That's kind of when he came to Salt Lake, he did it. And it was so unique to where we grew up in Utah, in Mormon capital Utah, to have a lot of that culture brought with us, eating and growing all of our food and always being with each other and always in the outdoors in the winter and doing stuff and getting genuinely cold as a family and just having fun that you see when you go back there. You're like, oh, this is pretty much, it's in you. This is the way you get happy, is to garden all day or to go up into the mountains with your family or to do all that cool stuff. But as you get older, you dawn on it. When you're young, you're like, why are we so weird? Why do we plant a half an acre of garlic, Dad? Half of it's just, why do we have beehives? Why is this like that? Why are we killing goats when we can go buy meat at the grocery store? And you can just see it's obvious nostalgia for him. It just I think in my mind, it's part of his happiness. It just reminds him of his thing. It's his happy spot for me now as well. You know?
Well, it seems like, again, guy 101, we'll talk about this a little bit more later too, is just provide and protect, right?
Yeah.
As a dad. And I think he was bringing that for your family.
For sure.
And that gave him pleasure because he was able to provide.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways. I wish I'd have gotten to meet him.
Yeah. He was awesome.
I've met your mom.
Amazing
She's a
woman.
hoot.
Yeah. Super rad. I was with her last night. She's
Doing
awesome.
good?
She's doing better. Yeah. We had a fun a lot of reflecting about our house growing up and all the gardening and stuff like that. Yeah. She's great. Sad,
funny.
but she's getting old sad.
We all get to go there.
Yeah.
But she did handle her Jello shots at Christmas time pretty
Big time.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. Vodka, no problem.
Taking it down.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like, then when we're kids, like I'm always curious too, like where do we start our journey to get to where we're at today in front of me, right? And it's like, I always think it's somewhere when you're
Holy
little.
smokes.
And I kind of got this new product I want to introduce to your store.
That is unbelievable.
What? Tell me more.
You have to. That is. How the hell did you even know about that? That is. So,
What is it?
Oh my god! So
What are we looking at?
So this here, I can't believe this is happening. That is so random. So we were allowed white bread and cold cuts only when my family went on vacation, and my older siblings would. This is epic. Would babysit me, and on Saturday mornings I got to watch, or Sunday mornings I got to watch cartoons, and I knew we had white bread and cold cuts down in the basement, and I was going to watch cartoons, and I snuck down before all of the other family members were up, and I made myself a cartoon style cold cut sandwich. And I was going to sit in front of the cartoons and eat the entire damn sandwich. But then Michelle and them started coming down the stairs, and I got up and I put it in the bottom drawer of the kitchen to hide it because I was like, they're going to kill me. I'm eating
grounded.
all of the white bread and trusted it was like the ultimate treat to get cold cuts and white bread. And I hid it in the bottom drawer, and I was just like watching cartoons, and she's like, hey, who wants waffles for breakfast? And I picture like the waffle iron. Obviously, it's in the drawer that I put it in. And I'm like playing dead in front of the drawer. No waffles. No, but she opens it up, and they have this huge, that sandwich there. And she's like, you're eating the entire goddamn thing. And I sat there just coursing down the entire loaf of Wonder Bread and cold cuts, just like mayonnaise. It was my dream come true. That is making me way too happy right now.
Well, I was going to pitch it for the restaurant. It's like Eli Wood.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Instead of dogwood, it's like the Eli Wood sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can down this thing, we'll give you, like if you eat the whole
free
the
stick
whole
of
thing, we'll get
salami.
you a T-shirt, right?
Yeah, and some cholesterol pills. It's great.
Great. All right.
That's
So I think we got our
unbelievable.
first entrepreneurial project.
There we go. That is so epic. Nobody knows that story. That's so rad. Michelle Cairo.
She might have known. Yeah, it's always a resource issue.
Yeah.
But it's fun to think about, even as a 10-year-old, inventing this dogwood type sandwich, this cartoon sandwich, and then, going from there to where you end up, ultimately in life, as running a few restaurants and obviously sausage outfit that we'll talk about too in a little bit too. But there's like, now you're like in Salt Lake. You mentioned your sister, and I love this picture of you guys. Again,
Yeah, it's the best.
Again, what I'm looking at is like a picture of you in Salt Lake. The mountains are behind you on roller skates in the grass with your older sister.
Mhm.
You are so cute
She's amazing. Yeah.
in this picture. And it's funny to think about just life as a kid in, coming in from Greece, being what's called the outside. I'm sure you guys were kind of outsiders in that community.
Huge. Yeah. It was wild.
And you were able to still find your way.
Oh, for sure. Very proudly. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think my favorite story about how on the outside we were when we were in, Michelle and I were in elementary school. My father got called to the principal's office because the principal was complaining that we smelled too much like garlic, because we'd use scordeia, which is the garlic condiment, any like old starch or potatoes, you take white vinegar and raw garlic and you grate it. But we'd put it on everything. On our school lunches, like we'd roll up with sardines and dried lamb or cooked lamb and scorleon. We'd eat it all the time for dinner. I didn't even know you stunk after you ate it. And the principal called my dad into the office, and we didn't even know we were stinking. We just thought we were in trouble. And he's like, your children smell too much like garlic. And my dad was like, your children smell like deodorant. You're detergent. You guys are fake smelling. This is not for it. And we'd like pulled us out of, I'm going to teach them how to learn at home. This is crazy talk. And instantly we're walking out of like, I think we were the only non-Mormons in our school until high school, like that was we were very different.
I know Michelle's mentioned having the brown hair.
Exactly.
And wanting to, fit in and just how hard that can be.
Yeah.
But even probably being part of that outside culture and, my favorite thing, and I wanted to talk to you about too, was snowboarding.
Heck yeah.
And again, that at a time too, when you were coming through the ranks was sort of new. It was the outsider.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, mainstream per se,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you found your way into that community.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in that era too, we grew up skiing, night skiing at Brighton Ski Resort was a can of a canned food and $4 sometimes for a night skiing pass, and be able to take public transit up there and ski. And that was the first time I saw snowboarding. They wouldn't allow you on the lifts, but people were hiking next to it, and it was instantly over. I was like, what in the world is that? Like that one person. And I went and bought a Shopko Mogul Monster. Did you remember those plastic snowboards without even edges?
Yes.
There was a sled that you can duct tape your toes into, and we would hike them up to the craziest places we could and try to ride them out of there. And ever since then, I was just obsessed. I was way too hyper for my own good. Just ask Michelle. Like they would just send me to run loops around the house. Like I literally would have a track around the house. They'd be like, go run outside because you're just being annoying. And I was like, I gotta go run outside.
So if you were a dog, what would you be? Like
freaking, I guess like a Jack Russell or something. Just kind of just wired and never stopping. It'd be like, I can't do anything. Go run circles. And then when in the wintertime, they'd give us these snowboards, and the stop to the ski resort was like, right across the street. The public transit bus was right across from our school bus, and the two kids in my neighborhoods on powder days would take our snowboards out and hide them in the snow, and then the snow would happen and we'd go to school and we'd cross the street. And this is elementary school to middle school. I was already ditching full days of school and then take the snow off it and get on public transit and be at Brighton Ski Resort with my snowboard.
Genius.
And then come home and pretend like my mom didn't notice I was completely scorched by sun-kissed and smelled like pine trees and everything. And she's just like, what and why they're gonna call you? But I was like, oh my god, it was the best. Like, and she just knew. Like, I was one of those kids. I feel so bad for my mom. I mean, she probably got called every week with a problem with me. Just energy. I still to this day, I got to be doing stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
Just active. I'm always running around. So,
Well, I think there's like 7 brains of genius. There's definitely some studies on this stuff.
Really?
And, you have your physical genius, and some people have, more empathetic, like a nurse or a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and others have sales skills. Others are science skills. But yeah, there's like, what were your skills?
I don't know. Having a good time.
I knew how to party.
Not like just like being in the mountains and being active, it was always in it for sure for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was my happy place at any time. So that's where it always happened for sure.
But then you got on a Burton sponsorship, yeah?
It's actually a credit to my mom. So my father passed away, and I was horrible at school. And right when she was having a rough time, they were married forever, and I was 15 years old, and she was having a rough time, and I was having the worst time, and I was always in fights and just being a horrible human being. And she's like, it's not going to work for you. You should just go snowboarding.
No.
And I was like, yeah, I probably should just go snowboarding. She's like, at least this year, just go snowboarding. And I was really, really poor. Like, you remember when you'd wear dicky pants and garden gloves and flannels is like,
that's you.
That became the image, but that was like what we had, like jeans and a flannel and garden gloves. not for style purposes, for the fact that it was like,
That's what I
that
got.
or my sledding gear that I had in my, and we'd go and we would just ride, and just, it was everything. And then, Josh Roberts, the owner of Milo Sport,
I know Milo, but yeah, I don't know Josh
he's
personally.
amazing. And,
Yeah.
Tim Osler.
Yeah, Tom, I know.
Yeah, Josh made like a sponsor me video for me and gave it to Burton, and next thing I know, I had a matching snowboarding outfit and new boards, and I'd be able to go on traveling, and it just was such a game changer for me. And my mom kind of struggled and gave me a lot of freedom in that era.
Mhm.
She was just like, she wanted to do other things. She's been married. The house was depressing, and she did it the best way I could ever imagine. She trusted me. She knew I was a good kid. She's like, you're always happy when you're up in the mountains doing that stuff. Learn. Always be learning, read books, study, do what you got to do, but you're obviously not going to go this direction. Do there, be a good kid, stop being an idiot, go snowboarding, and it saved me.
Thank you, Mrs. Cairo.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
That's awesome.
Good looking out. Thanks for
It kinda
realizing
works
there's
out.
other ways to get to.
But yeah, it's just that system we're in. And again, having the perspective and the confidence to go, this is going to work.
Yeah.
This is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Who sponsored you at Burton?
So do you remember a guy named Chris Jorgensen that was like the team manager
Yeah.
way back to like Mike Brown and them? Who's the guy at Salty Peaks? He was the guy that delivered me my first
Oh,
snowboards.
yeah, that's a big one.
I can't remember.
Their history museum's amazing.
God, I gotta remember that. But they were the first people. I went to Salty Peaks up to pick up my sponsor me boards, and I got 3 boards and 2 outfits,
kid.
and I was just like,
That's a
this
good kid.
can't be real.
So who'd you ride with?
So the main people I rode with was like Tim Osler,
Yep.
Tonino,
Tonino.
Josh Graves, but they were 2 years old, or Josh Roberts, and they were 2 years older than me. And so we were like the era behind it. But Brighton Ski Resort, that was the era of JP Walker and Jeremy Jones and all of those legends. And Brandon Ruff was our high school, and BJ Lyons was a bird loc, but still rode Brighton quite a bit. So, you'd go to Brighton and be able to see just the craziest shredders ever. And it was just an awesome time. But, I think where Brighton really took off when people started coming and seeing these guys ride, and Brian Iguchi and Jim Rippey would roll up and they would do like backflips off of the things we were just trying to do indies off of. And it really kind of set the bar to where it was at. And yeah, it was just such an exciting time. And again, like, I was a good snowboarder, but that's when I realized I wasn't going to be a great snowboarder. Sitting on some of these things that you rode. I can remember, if you're familiar with Brighton, there's like the V-tree chutes. All of those. And it was like horrifying us to take like just jumps off of them and like clear some of them or shoot the chutes. And then these other guys, or even Jeremy Jones and JP, would come up and they would be like, I'm going to try a fakie 5 over that entire shoot that I've dared to do once. And I'm sitting there being like, that's really scary. Maybe I'm not going to be a professional snowboarder.
See, I would have never predicted that from you. I figured you'd be the kid who'd be like, oh yeah, for sure. Let me go.
No, I think I didn't have a lot to fall back on. So I always had, if I break my leg right now, I was the guy that was still working. I was still like
Did you ever do the reservoir there?
Oh yeah, heck yeah, on the Millie side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That was always like, no.
Drop into the concrete side of the reservoir. Yeah.
Like, I'll take a 0 on that one, but
yeah,
definitely, it definitely seems like one of those rites of passages at that
100%.
resort. It was like, if you're at this level, you should be able to stick this.
Exactly. And there's a few like the Mary shoots that you're like,
right?
you ride up looking at them every day, and you're like,
ever do Grizzly Gulch?
Oh yeah, that's
Legend.
it. That's the Grizzly Gulch was kind of the most fun you could have for free, period, as a kid growing up. And once we started building kickers, we'd filled a few kickers that we thought were awesome hips. And then once other people started showing up, you were like, oh, you could jump that entire thing, couldn't you? Cool. And it elevated so quick in those like 3 or 4 years.
What year was that?
What is that? Like 90s, 95, 96, 97? Does that make sense?
Heyday.
Yeah.
Magazines are still a thing. And
Yep. Yeah. It was the best.
if you could ride with anybody in that era, who would you pick and why?
Gosh, that's a great. We all loved. Do you remember Sean Farmer?
Of course,
Yeah, Farmer.
Plenty of road trips with Sean.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Epic. Yeah, I think that Farmer. Let me think, because I was fortunate to ride with some great ones. Peter Lyons was always kind of like he was the corkscrews in that era of like watching him create upside down tricks and era.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to ride some kickers with him. So I guess that Terry J. Hawkinson, I think I would give anything to go like ride a big mountain with him and just see how truly fast he rode. It looked so crazy.
It's all true.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah. Craig Kelly, of course, give anything.
Yep.
Powder turns. Noah Slashnick. Come on. Did you ride with Noah?
I've done all of them. Again, I feel lucky. I've got I take it for granted when you're doing it. You're just working.
Sure.
And then, Peter I met. I think I did his checkout, the first shot with the magazine on his checkout and other road trips. And worked with him when he was on Division 23.
Mm-hmm.
And then Farmer and Hawkinson, we worked on, was it 07, I think? We worked on First Descent. It was one of the Mountain Dew movies. And then went up to AK and Valdez, got in birds, and flew out to a peak that they got to name. And that was fun and scary all at the same time. Because
I bet.
There's two kind of helicopters, right?
Let's hear it.
There's those that have crashed and those that are about to crash because they all go down.
Yeah, exactly. Horrifying.
It was just crazy. Got to see a young Travis Rice.
Oh, wow.
And just the intensity of which he can do anything. And then Sean Farmer. And then, of course, Craig. Like, I think my favorite Craig stories are like, dude's smarter than the magazines. There's so many nuanced things that he did that were super genius, and he was so in tune to always being a student and learning. Because I remember him going on surf trips with Kelly and then learning, because he was more senior, and how to be a professional and how to get endorsements and how to work magazine endorsements, all that thing. And Craig, to his credit, he took me on a trip to Riksgränsen, Sweden. And he flew me. He paid for me to go because he knew he could get a magazine article in Backside Monster and Japanese magazines, and U.S. magazines. And so he knew all the photo incentive money that he would get. He would more than quadruple what he cost me to go.
He at this age?
And he wasn't a young chicken. He's maybe 23 when he did that. And then, and of course, when he's there, he's always the greatest, spokesman for the sport. And I do remember getting there, and these kids are, you're 150 miles above the Arctic Circle, and there's caribou, and then every kid had a cell phone. Like back then, it was like, realtors had a big ass thing in their car, and these kids were all on Nokias, and you're like, whoa, these guys are super ballers. They got these little tiny cell phones, and every kid had one. But what I learned later was that Norway and Sweden just said, forget putting in poles. Let's just go with satellites. And they just were ahead of the curve.
So smart.
And then riding with Hawkinson on that trip too. It was fun.
Everything he did looked so fast. That's all. Like, we would just
Hawkinson, he doesn't mess around. But he's also like a genius. Like, it was just 14. I was watching him, and he dropped into a contest in St. Moritz, and then Craig was there. He watched Craig's run, and then he replicated Craig's run, like at 14. So it was like, all right, something's going on with this guy. And then, of course, his legacy, it is what it is. He had a great run, and he's probably a super celebrity in Norway.
Oh, I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well deserved.
So what's the biggest thing you learn? Again, I hear there's like, you learn how to work the system. What other lessons did you learn from snowboarding that kind of helped you kind of move forward in life?
I think the biggest takeaway from it is that I needed it in my life to deal with a lot of stress. Getting out into the mountains and being able to do things. It's where I clear my thoughts still to this day, is doing things outside. I have to say that for sure. I can handle pretty much anything going forward if I get a time up in the mountains doing things that I enjoy doing or whatever it is. But yeah, because it was kind of some stressful times in my life there. High school dropout, trying to figure out life, nothing really going on. But if I was snowboarding, everything was like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be fine. I could have deep thoughts and figure out what's going to happen. And
there is a zen to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so now we got to make the transition from snowboarding to salamis. And we end up, again, finding some focus and ending up in the mountains of Switzerland.
Yeah.
Like,
Seriously.
and then Jägermeister is more than just a beverage, boys and girls.
A
Like,
little bit more.
like,
Yeah.
tell us more.
Yeah, exactly. So I was figuring out that I wasn't going to be a very great snowboarder because, fear, all of the things it was. And my family owned restaurants. And my dad was a cook, and I just really missed it. Like being in kitchens and do that. And I told my mom, I was like, I want to become a chef. I want to move back. I want to go to France. I think that would be amazing, and go to like the Cordon Bleu. And I was always as a Greek kid, you're always cooking. And so, after snowboarding, I would cook all the guys dinner and wake up early and make eggs and do all the stuff. It was super fun.
Should have had you on my trips.
Yeah, I should have invited me. It would have been awesome.
Damn.
I'm sure it wasn't very good to what I've learned. I just told my mom I loved it. And she's like, if you're going to do this, you're going to move back to Greece. You should go to the village and like cook Greek food. And I was like, Mom, it doesn't sound like what I'm picturing here. I wanted to be a fancy chef. And she actually called the church in Chicago, because we had family had restaurants out there, and they knew a gentleman that had an intern from Switzerland named Annegret Schlumpf. And as things went down, it was next thing you know, they're like, if you can get here in 2 weeks, you can start an apprenticeship. And I literally went to the library, because obviously the internet in my world wasn't there, and I went and I found Wildhus, Switzerland, and it said ski resort with world famous meat making and cheese making in northeast corner of Switzerland. Sold all of my snowboard stuff, sold my Subaru, broke up with my girlfriend.
Later, girlie.
Hopped into it was a one phone call too, and they told me the date to be there. Do you remember that? Like making a plan. Like, yeah, you got to be here at this time, and then not having to check in on an email or getting a Google Calendar. Be like, yeah, I'm going to be in Switzerland in 2 weeks at this village at this time, and then go to a travel agent and book the ticket.
Oh yeah.
Took all that and then pulled up into this. And I remember thinking, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing? I'm going there to learn and cook. Wouldn't it be amazing if I go snowboarding one time? Like snowboarding in the Alps would be so cool. And go up to this, like pull into this little picturesque Swiss town, and all I see is, ski lifts coming out from the main town. And I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. They pick me up, drive halfway up the mountain, and then there's this ideal little restaurant in there, and they pull into the parking lot and go in, and they're like, you probably haven't seen many mountains. They pictured me as American. They didn't do they didn't go to the library, to find out where Salt Lake City was. Yeah. Probably haven't seen very much mountains. Are you familiar with snow? And I'm kind of like, yeah, I think I can do this. And walked into the kitchen, and there was wild animals in the cooler, and I was just smitten. And the next day they're like, you have some jet lag? They gave me like a big lunch of chocolate and cheese and all this stuff, and I go up to this little house, and then they're like, tomorrow you can go snowboarding if you know how. And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. That sounds great. And they're like, okay, meet down here at this time. And they had the Burton Custom 5, literally like my favorite
there you go
board, like set up for me, and handed it to me, and they gave me a pass, a swatch where the season pass was on the watch. So tech. I was like in pinch myself world, and was just riding these huge mountains like day one on a snowboard, and I've probably never been that happy.
You regular goofy foot.
Regular.
And then the mountains, again, they connect dot to dot to dot. It's massive.
Oh, the ski resorts.
Yeah. If you get to go and ski snowboard in Switzerland, it's like, it's a treat.
Yeah.
It's I think, well, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like in Brighton, we used to mock ourselves for taking one lodge break. If it, like the ski was good, if we like went in and ate lunch, we didn't eat it on the chairlift or next to a kicker, you're totally shamed. And on the first time I went with like the crew to go snowboarding, I wake up early, big powder day, first people on the chair. I'm like, this all checks, and we all get off the lift, and I'm ready to roll. And they're like, well, you got to go to the lodge and smoke cigarettes and have croissants, have brandy and coffee. And I was like, a little different. And then like 2 runs, and then let's go get some more brandy and coffee. And I was like, different. But I do like this. It's easier.
But again, you weren't giving yourself credit that you were a great snowboarder in the States, but you were a champion snowboarder in Switzerland.
That was pretty dang good. Yeah.
The environment changed. Tell me more.
Yeah. I think the funniest freaking story was year one. The whole ski resort closes, or all like the hotel resorts close for one day, and they have one race. and like all of the people can ski and snowboard, and you just got to be the fastest. And in that era of snowboarding early, do you remember like the Utah summer winter games and stuff? You'd race, you could race, ride the half pipe, and do the freestyle. And so like when I got my Burton sponsorship, I'd still race, and so I do a lot of hard boot like racing, and I actually kind of liked it a lot. But anyways, I went up there and I couldn't speak German very well. They're like, go to this time, run these gates, do it, go down there, have a pretty great run, get down to the bottom, go back to work. Afterwards, everybody's getting all dustied up to go to the bar in the village. You know, there's probably like 200 people there. Winner takes all, everything. And they're reading off all the winners for the skiers. And everybody's like, gosh, we didn't win. We don't have any fast snowboarders. And then the final, like I'm already drinking, and the final winner for the snowboarder is Elias Cairo.
Yeah.
And I turn around to the bars like, who the hell's this? And I stand up there and they give me the cowbell. You know, like you get at it. And I just grab this cowbell and I'm like, oh, I've seen this. And I just start ringing it. Boom, boom. And everybody's like drops. And they're like, what are you doing? And they grab the cowbell and they just fill it full of champagne and hand it back to me. And I was like, oh, this is way better.
Yeah.
And like the win for the whole thing was every time our restaurant went in there, we got a full cowbell of sparkling wine. Damn. So it was like every Sunday after a big service, like 6 of us would sled down to the bar and get a cowbell.
See, it was all worth it.
It was so worth it. It was so much fun. But yeah, it was awesome. I'm
super curious too. And again, we talked about school a little bit, but again, there's the system, go to school, go to college, yada, yada. And I'm thinking about this Jägermeister and his apprenticeship, in a kind of an old school way that we learned to craft and how we became, professionals in our lives. But can you make a correlation or connection to that experience? And tell me more. Yeah, exactly. I think they realized quicker that not everybody learns the same way. Back to that original conversation where there's a lot of people that need to be creative or working with their hands and building and engineering or cooking or whatever that is. And it really works for me. Right. So I walked in there and they're just saying learning, but you're learning by 5 days of working, cutting, butchering, cooking, seasoning, baking, all those things in 1 day in a classroom. And I really loved it. And I was really challenged by the language and I wanted to do this. And so started with the apprenticeship program of, just actually working as a cook. And 6 months into it, my visa ran up and I asked Bjerger if I could stay. They kind of said no. But I didn't leave and I just kept cooking. And then 2.5 years in, I asked for to go to the apprenticeship and he didn't say yes per se. And Anna Gray didn't say no. So I went to school and I was, really focused on it like dawned on me what an opportunity it was. But I didn't have any education and I was really loving this. And I really wanted to stay in Switzerland because I could push out my front door to go snowboarding and I was learning a career and everything was pretty optimal. And so I really put forth effort to like learning and studying and getting book smart in that sense. But it was great. And then your tests were true. Like your tests were come to this kitchen, a different kitchen, and bake us bread, cook 3 entrees and make us a dessert. And I was like, these are my kind of tests. So it was like chop before chop was chopped. Before chop. Yeah. And that's like how you get graded on everything. Did you make it happen and then come back up? And then after that, at the year 4, I got my degree sent to the hotel and everything was epic. And then I spent 1 more year there and moved to Greece and cooked on a Greek island and moved back to Switzerland. And Michelle Cairo bailed me out. Thank you, Michelle. Again, bailed out. What do you mean? Yeah, I just didn't. I worked in Greece. I wasn't very smart about lining up my pay before I went down there. And they didn't pay me. So I worked the whole summer a Greek island. And they're like, we gave you room and board. And I was like, yeah, but everybody else had a room and board and got paid. And they're like, yeah. And they paid me like just minimal. I think I had like 300 euros. So I bought a ticket back to Switzerland and told Michelle I was in some shit. And she's like, come to Portland and check out this place. You're going to love it. And I had a job lined up to air cure beef in Graubünden. I don't know that one. Yeah. Central Switzerland. And came to Portland and she took me to the farmer's market and I was walking around and saw road cream, blue cheese and a line around the corner. And I was like, man, we get some salami. And
my sister, she's just like, what, why? And I just kept talking about salami and all of these things. And she took me to Whole Foods or one of the stores, and I tried American salami, and I was like, I'm moving back. This is not salami. I just spent a ton of time learning how to ferment meat and cook things and make things taste good and
Do it the right way.
And came back. Michelle put me up she bought my ticket. She put me up in her house for, I don't even know how long, 6 months to a year, maybe.
Her story is she didn't want to be running your company.
No, she didn't want.
She had a cush job.
Yeah,
making bling,
tons of money, doing all the fun, rich stuff. And I begged her for the $30,000 for my part of the opening Olympia Provisions, something along that. And she was still keeping her cush job, and was very, very clear that she wanted nothing to do with the restaurants.
I love you, brother, but
yeah, I love you. You're a lot like Dad. You have this entrepreneurial spirit. You like to make things. Great. That's cool. Weird, I think it is. But she was always every question I had, she was there for me, obviously. And she's like, you need a web store. You need to grow these things, all of it. And then once, she was like, there's competitions you should enter.
These are you.
That's it. That's her.
You guys are pretty cute, man.
And she just like put it in. And then I tell the story. It really happened, I think, when Oprah Winfrey recognized that we made good chorizo and our website crashed and everything.
Wow.
But for her, and she was like, you're bad at business. You're bad at that side of stuff. And I'm like, I know, that was kind of what it is. And I was like, and she's like, you are bad. And I was like, I think we are bad. And like something snapped in her head that she's like, you really want to turn it into a real business. And I was like, I don't want to go bankrupt, and I do like making sausage. And she quit her job and moved over to work with me and stopped taking a paycheck.
Well, that brings up the other dynamic too. Again, is like, again, family business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I know you guys have had other partners
Mm-hmm.
in other businesses, and so I'm super curious on how you're able to. Again, you guys have been in business 15 years. Congrats! And
Thank
then,
you very much.
How do you guys keep a relationship? Do you keep, again, priority is your family,
Mm-hmm.
and then the business. And let's be honest, there's a lot of stress in running a business.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do it?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of mutual respect, and we both have different skill sets that we recognize that we need, and we genuinely do love each other. Like I love Michelle Cairo as a human being, and she has my back completely, and I have hers, and I believe in her decisions, and we have an amazing ability to discuss very complex things and get emotional and not hate each other, and it's only getting better in our communication. I think there's a lot of that. We really respect each other and what we bring to the table, and we're good at having hard conversations, and she's kept it. I think we've kept it, but mostly by her. Family's so important for us to have fun and eat and still be a great family and do this and have parties and not always talk about work around our siblings and our loved ones and everything, and still be family, and then also put on our work face, where we fully trust each other, but we have a lot of work to do right now and have conversations and push and learn and do all those things. So I don't know what the key to success to other family members would be, except really love each other and respect each other, I guess.
So I'm hearing is love and respect, and then dividing personal time from professional time.
Yeah.
Here's a tough question. Again, just theoretically, again, you're having success and growing the business, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity where we'll take Eli, but we won't take Michelle. You didn't even hesitate. Good for you.
Opportunity. There's that. I would said it the first words in my book, and I'll say it always. Michelle Cairo is the key to my success. There's no doubt about it. She is the brains of Olympia Provisions that actually saw it. I was always in the forest, and usually am, and she can see the whole picture of it all. She's always has that great oversight of, hey, we should be careful with our money here, and I get to have a lot of fun, and I get a lot of credit for all the hard work that people do. And Michelle's in the background, like doing the hard work, having horrible conversations, caring about margin, caring about P&Ls, getting good interest rates, and all the things that make a company successful while I'm on a podcast with you.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's a great podcast and important, right, Michelle?
Thank you. So the other thing you mentioned too is hard times, and then as a branding kind of show, it's like Olympic Provisions to Olympia Provisions, and just the headaches and challenges of being, I guess, called out legally and what you set up in trademarks. And is there any lessons that you would have done differently where you sit now and looking back on time? What would you have done differently?
Yeah. It's interesting because in a weird way, it's amazing how many people resonate with that story. And from a marketing perspective, maybe it was a good thing. Like, so it got Oregonian talked about it times, like
no bad news, right?
Yeah, it really, I would never do it because it's too risky and it almost bankrupted us, and changing all that branding was it. But man, I can't believe how much, I think it was a really big time that Portland rallied around us. Like, we were getting new seasons, all these things, and we were this little tiny meat company that just moved into their first real plant that I'm at, and branded everything and got our first delivery truck. And then the Olympics called us to say we have to change absolutely everything. So that was really, really, really hard. I guess be more, it's, when it is when you start a business, you don't really have the capital,
you don't know everything,
the foresight to be like, we should check that if there's a law for this. So I still just recognize, I guess you're going to make a lot of mistakes, just get better at adapting to them and learn from them and move on and try not to go out of business.
Have some lawyers in your pocket. And
exactly.
It's fun. If you meet Hawkinson, you'll have to talk to him about the Olympics. I bet you guys would be on the same page.
Does he have some?
He's not into the Olympic Committee, ISF, all the, just people profiting off of the Olympic athletes. And so he's got an opinion.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely seems odd that they'd come after a little independent meat company just to protect their brand in the Pacific Northwest. But,
I'm going to flex on you.
That's what we said. We were going to write a letter and be like, hey, it looks like a lot of your athletes could use a little protein. Our salami sticks are roughly the size of your batons that they run with. We'll give you some of these, and we'll keep the Olympics. Thank you, Olympic Provisions.
I'm sure they played that card.
Yeah, they were like, no, let's talk to your lawyers. And like, lawyers, let me call up my law department. Michelle,
they can fix this.
Fix all of this, please.
It's all effed up again.
I fucked it up again.
But then the other piece that's interesting in business is the restaurants. And so congrats on your latest restaurant. And it's like, it's not brand new, but again, I think you got some great accolades, name change, all that kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. And just, it's funny talking to other chefs in town, and I was saying I was talking to you today, they all light up.
Oh, really? Cool.
And they wanted to know, how do you juggle 3 restaurants? It's like, that seems hard. And then the manufacturing facility, it's like, they must think you don't sleep or something. Yeah.
And again, it's, there's another person that doesn't get nearly enough credit in my life, and that's my wife, Jess Harris. She manages all the restaurants. So Michelle CEOs everything. Jess manages the restaurants, and Alpenrausch is literally her idea when we had the sausage OP Wurst, or Olympia Provision Public House. We had that huge beer garden out front in the summer, and then for COVID era, and it was great, and the neighborhood loved it, and everything was awesome. And then the city said we had to tear it down, and we knew we were in complete trouble, and we were going to walk away from it. And she's like, hey, Southeast, Olympia Provision Southeast, we've learned to do that, make people feel really special and make really high quality things. Like, we had just gone to the Alps, and she's like, man, there's so many charming, great alpine restaurants up there. Why don't we make something really, really nice that is just really, truly traditional, cooking awesome food that you don't get here? And we were all like, there's just so much risk to this. And she's like, we'll make it Maximus in design, and just like the Alps, and get gaudy stuff and just load it up and make it really, really charming, and have
maybe a cowbell,
maybe a bunch of cowbells and antlers and rakes and anything that's ag, and call it Alpenrausch because of mountain euphoria and all that great stuff that we always talk about. And did it. I just got to, go in there and talk about the menu and come up with the idea. And she wrote the story, and it's just been awesome. Found some really amazing chefs. Surrounding yourself by epic people that are genuinely into it for a career purpose has been really lucky for us.
But that's a other part of running a business, is like tenure. And again, keeping people engaged and around is good for your bottom line. Yeah. And you've been really successful as a leader in being able to keep people engaged that way. Why? Why do you even care?
I think I'm thinking, and this is Michelle's a credit to this too, but I am purpose driven, right? There's more to what I want to do is than just operate a business. I want people to be happy and make amazing food through this and have positive impact on the environment and the community. And I think the people, if you could really live that and show up every single day and be consistent on that and really stand up to those values when business is hard and things are difficult and you're trying to do it. There's easier ways to go about it, but you're actually trying to make it a better experience. People resonate with that. They want to come to work there and they know that consistently, they know the answer. Eli and Michelle aren't going to wishy-washy on this. The goal is to make it great, to make it better and be transparent and be proud of what we're doing and treat each other with respect and so on and so forth.
Seems pretty simple.
Yeah.
Why aren't more people doing it?
Yeah, it's hard. Business is hard.
It is.
It's so hard. And there's so many times where, and especially in an industry like the meat industry, where the name of the game is greenwashing and winky winky and make it look pretty. That's a beautiful wink.
But that brings up too, the future again is like, what's the hardest innovative thing you've done in the meat industry?
Pet treats.
What?
Well, let me think. Yeah. So the whole idea of getting pasture raised pork in the Pacific Northwest and supporting small farms, getting the group, like lining that all up, where you're actually able to get GAP for pork, these farmers to get certified and then get a slaughter facility to get humane certified, to work with Whole Foods, and the logistics that go all around that was insanely a difficult effort. That took us 7 years to even get everybody's inertia to every day showing up and be like, how are we going to fix this? Plus run a company that's still doing this. How are you going to change the meat industry in the way that you want it? And then how do you make it profitable and deal with the entire full carcass utilization? And how do you take all of the byproducts from a pig, the skin, the bones, the feet, and turn it into at least some form of hopeful profit and making pet treats? And man, I could ferment meat and make pates and salami and smoked sausages, but figuring out how to make a shelf life, well, a year and a half on a pet treat and bones and skin consistent, it took us forever. Paul Upliger, our QA/QC guy, has been with me 15 years, first employee. It was hard. It was every day being like, we like to taste things and we can mix spices and seasoning and everything. And this is like bone, skin, no salt, just like, ugh.
Well, there's a few things it brings up for me again is the collaboration it takes to put your farmers networks together. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned greenwashing and winky winky. Yeah. And then it sounds like you're actually doing the hard work of trying to utilize the whole animal. Mm-hmm. Why care? Why? You can throw it away. You don't have to put the pig foot or whatever in the sausage for the animal, but you do anyway.
Right.
Why?
It's just it is business. And so if it's going to be a sustainable long-term fix to a huge problem, every part of it should make some sort of revenue. But of course, holistically wasting an animal that lived on this earth is horrible. That's what a charcuterie maker does. We take all the trim and everything that nobody wants and we make a pate that the fanciest chefs in the world love. That's like the core of what we do. Wasting things is horrible. So if you're going to do this, you have to get good at managing byproducts. And I really wanted America to hear that story. A lot of people told me in the brand, don't ruin your brand by putting a pet treat on that because you're such a fancy brand. But mm-hmm. Yes, we are a fancy brand and we do make the highest quality meat, I think, in America. And they should hear the story that if you're going to make the fanciest meat in the world, you have to change how the industry in America is ran.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to change the perception of what value actually means. When you told this story, I think about Gucci and it's expensive, but they have all the slave labor overseas.
Correct.
And it's out of sight, out of mind. So then those fancy people are able to stir it around, but what they're actually projecting is like, I'm okay with kids being slaves.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And what you're trying to do is change that conversation to be more about, no, this is what it really takes. Mm-hmm. And there's a premium, I'm sure, associated to your product in order to be able to afford to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And what is, like, if you truly call yourself a quality product, like a true quality product is more than it tasting epic and having great mouth texture and good branding and good feel. It could go to that level of actually the greatest products have good feel to them. And you're having the meat taste unbelievably better from these animals. And that's the hardest conversation to have because it is better meat.
Mhm.
Like it just tastes so much better. And if you're ever really going to be a true quality brand, you need the highest quality to do that. And then the ethos behind it, that's part of quality as well. Being able to have the frank conversations of, we're very proud of this. That means it's very high quality. You can feel absolutely great about eating this meat. That's the next level of quality, more than just great branding and beautiful packaging and the right amount of salt and sour and all the stuff that makes it taste good.
So now you're here in Portland, Oregon.
Mhm.
Plenty of great restaurants and cuisine to be had.
Unbelievable.
And again, trends that are happening again are like, hey, a Mediterranean diet will help you live longer.
Sure.
What's your counter to that? Obviously, like, there's some bad press going on with hot dogs and sausages and
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I guess I kind of stay my lane in that in a weird way. I've always made delicious product. And if you're going to do it, you enjoy the highest quality and just enjoy it. Right. Like I'm never going to like have to bend to be like, I'm going to become a health food now. My food's not healthy. It's delicious. And
Mhm.
I'm happy that people are finding that proteins are good for you and less additives are great for you and so on and so forth. But I'm just making the highest quality product I possibly can. But a lot of people are eating our product way more for health reasons.
Right.
And we are out branching out and partnering with other like-minded meat companies that are playing in the keto space and so on and so forth. So if I can support them and they do it, I absolutely do that.
here's a stupid question. Like, what's the white stuff on the outside?
Yeah, and molds, man.
It looks gross, dude. What is it?
It's salami needs to have white, beautiful molds on it, or it's not a salami. Fact. So everything else you see, a true salami should be treated like a bloomy rind cheese or a triple cream cheese in a cheese case. It should be refrigerated. It shouldn't be the shelf stable brick that's handed that we think that salami is in America. It should be a live, living product that is treated with a ton of care. So it's true mold. Yeah.
We heard that here. There's two things that kind of brings up for me really is like the idea of hunting, again, another controversial topic. And I know that you're an avid bow hunter and I was shooting with PSE bows back in the day. Like, yeah, what are you shooting with?
I shoot a Hoyt. Oh no, Matthew's last 2 years. So.
Who's that? There's an outfit here in town that's in the archery business. Like,
that makes bows?
Yeah, here in town. We talked to him on the Nemo side at one point, but yeah. Oh, wow. So again, there's like two sides to, again, I'll put an ethical thing, right? Again, with bow hunting, it's like you're out before the guns. And so it's way more organic and natural. And intimate, yeah. And the other one is if the skill of the hunter isn't hitting, the major organs, it could be unethical to get a butt shot in. Oh, and you got to track that. You got to track that animal for could be days.
The worst feeling in the whole world. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So go through that exercise for me.
Yeah. I think
because you're out in the woods, 90 days a year or something?
God, maybe more. I live for it. I'm leaving after this to go hunting.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. I live to get out there and be in there. Yeah. And it's an interesting conversation because I'm way more comfortable with my bow, but I've turned I'm able to hunt more arch or rifle lately. And I've had way more horrible incidences where I've injured animals with rifles, just shooting further than I should, or doing stupid things. So the ethical part of that has to be on the hunter, right? If you only shoot your bow 4 times a year and you're going out archery hunting and you don't know everything about it, don't do that. Same as rifle hunting. So you should be very comfortable with your weapon and very good when you're doing it and having that conversation no matter what you're doing. So I'm a much better archery hunter. I kill things, that sounds horrible, way quicker and more ethically with my bow than I can with my rifle. And I'm relearning how to be better with rifle and shotgun hunting right now. So the weapon of choice is all about the effort and time you spend practicing and getting better at it, proficient at it.
And I think the other thing that people kind of forget about is, again, this is part of nature and thinning out the herd per se. So again, I grew up in upstate New York and they had horribly hard winters and many of the weaker animals wouldn't make it through the winter. And so you're actually, instead of the cougar, you're actually just part of the system because there are permits and there's only so many animals that are allowed because the people that manage those valleys understand this is just part of the ethics.
Yeah. And, from an environmental and ethical, approach to it is it seems the impact of me and my wife getting a year of meat from a thing that is never raised farm or contributed to monocropping, and I'm doing it ethically, and I'm doing all of the way out there, is part of the solution. And I work in the meat industry. So, I always say this with the butchers and everybody that works with me. It's a horrible experience to kill an animal. That's not what we're out there doing. It's not like I live for that. I live for the fact that it brings me unbelievable meat, and I'm part of this thing that actually does it. When I hurt or harm an animal, I'd have to think about that, because now what do we make, 1,003 pounds of meat? You should never lose perspective of that. Happens every single time that you make that. The disconnect from people consuming meat is that happens no matter what. You're still killing an animal, and it's so hard, and it should be very, close to you. And for me to be experiencing it and kind of doing it for my hobby and what I live for, it's all ties together for me. It's not lost in the impact of it.
Well, that brings up something that's also interesting about just your persona in general. And it's something that's trending today anyway, is a word like toxic masculinity. And again, I think, young men coming up today, and what do they get to do to be masculine is sort of a question mark. And I think that it's just my personal opinion. It's more violence equals masculinity, as you see like this wrestling kind of thing.
Sure.
I beat you up, I'm a winner. There's sort of that is perceived as masculine. Mm-hmm. But I would argue that, cooking isn't masculine. There's other things that maybe are part of what you're doing, but overall, I feel that you're projecting a positive masculine image.
Oh, good.
And I'd just be curious to hear your opinions about
toxic
this toxic masculinity that's happening.
It's, if empathy is not enough used in this word, hatred and all those things that are actually out there, and having to be tough and mean to achieve something is the worst. I can't imagine that in my life. But, I think that when you hear people talking more and more hate and having to be tough and all of that stuff, it just kills me. It has nothing to do with being masculine to be an asshole and hate any human being for any reason. There's no room for that in my life. So if that has anything to do with masculinity, that can go fuck itself. I don't know what else to say about
I hear you. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping again that there's, even with anytime you get to put yourself out there, I appreciate it, because it gives another young person hopefully to see that, hey, I can do it like this way. Absolutely. And not have to be, I don't know what's going on with all that stuff, but it just isn't really cool at all. And I haven't really seen it like this in all the years we've been around, but
not in my lifetime. It seems horrible right now.
Like snowboarding and hunting and making cool menus and all that's really good stuff.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's the way it should be.
So what are you doing next? Like, tell me what's
next?
What's next for Eli?
Yeah, I guess I'm lucky. I'm really excited to make the Farmers Network and a model that America can look at of hopefully that this is how meat should be treated. I'm fortunate enough to be working with some like-minded meat companies that are like Maui Nui. They're removing the invasive access deer on Maui. So they're wild harvested deer. And with our knowledge in the USDA and sausage making, they're sending us their byproducts to make sausages and hopefully smoked steaks, where they're having an amazing positive impact on that island. And we're going to play a role with that. That just like is so dreamy for me.
Right.
It's really, really cool. And it's like-minded meat companies like that I'm able to partner with, that I'm excited to see how that grows as well. Wild Ideas, we're starting to work with. It's a wild harvested buffalo doing true migration through South Dakota, and they're improving songbirds and all the great stuff and using protein as a positive thing in the environment as opposed to it. So there's a lot of that I'm super excited. And the thing that just still keeps me up every day and is so funny is I still love making my product. Like, I work in my plant, I get to make cool branding and packaging, and things taste better, and get to be that for the next level 15 years into it, and see like what do we get to do cool with Olympia Provisions. And it's like, it's lost. A lot of people built companies to sell and move on, and there's no shame, no foul in that. That's just not what I did. I want it to be a legacy, build a brand that has delicious products that are some of the best in the world. And so I still get to figure out that next level of that.
Well, where can I buy it?
Hopefully at olympiaprovisions.com.
olympiaprovisions.com.
Go direct. That's always a support. New Seasons, Whole Foods. all over.
What's your favorite
Product?
Yep.
Saucisson de Arles, just sea salt and pork in mold. There it is.
Done.
The most challenging, simple product in the whole world, and just so delicious. I love it.
And he brought us a care package, so I can't wait to jump into that and
Awesome.
get the pepperettes going. And
Heck yeah,
it's
that's
really
delicious.
delicious stuff. All right, this is Eli.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.